think that is good. All right. Remind me your last name.
Reddick. Yeah, Reddick.
Why is it the Real Racket Academy?
That's the previous ownership. That's interesting that it came up on the voice and it's tagged as that. we thought we covered all of our bases. You know what's funny is Uber and Lyft, for some reason we can't change, even though you'd think it's tied to Google Maps and everything. It's not. People try to search on Uber and they can't.
Petition.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, here we go.
Scott Reddick, great to have you on the Joy of Padel podcast. I am out here in Las Vegas with you. It's not very often that I do a face-to-face with the Joy of Padel, and I wanted to talk to you about what you're doing out here. I've been very interested in everything that's happening in the United States. So, first of all, Scott, in your own words, who is Scott Reddick?
That's a good question. Who am I? I'm someone that's a passionate person, hardworking, very driven. I love adventure, I love excitement, I love new opportunities, and that's kind of, I guess, a good segue into, I guess, how I got started in paddling in this business.
Well, if you like adventure, you like risk.
I do like a bit of risk. I'm someone that dabbles in risk in certain things that I've done, adventure-wise, business-wise, and so, yeah, I would agree with that.
That's great. So we are here in Las Vegas at the P1 Padel Club, and you have 8 courts, outdoors, amazing facility. Tell us about, first of all, your road into paddle, Scott. How did you discover paddle? What on earth made you take on this addiction?
Sure, it's a great question. So my background's tennis. I grew up playing competitive tennis as a junior. Went away to school in North Carolina to play on a scholarship. I'm originally Canadian. I'm from Toronto. I was born in Montreal. Our family moved to Toronto when I was younger. So yeah, I grew up playing tennis. Absolutely love the sport. It's my passion. It's something that'll always be a part of my life. Had a long road of career, different endeavors and things like that, but I ended up living in the Bahamas, which I currently still do. I'm relocating to Las Vegas because of the business here, but yeah, about 3 years ago I moved to the Bahamas and was out there at a really nice resort called Albany, and I was training with some of the juniors there playing tennis, and they said, hey, do you want to come play paddle? And I said, I don't know what that is, but yeah, sure, let's go do it. So I'd been playing tennis out in the sun for 3 hours, and they said, hey, let's go play paddle. I said, okay, let's go do it. So we went out and played, and in the first 15 minutes, I fell in love.
That's so funny.
I was like, what is this sport? This is unbelievable. And of course, immediately as a tennis player and someone with racket sports experience, I thought, oh, I'm going to be great at this. And then I realized off the bat that no, that's not the case. I have a lot to learn. You can't just crush the ball at every point. But we stayed out there for probably another 3 hours, and I was exhausted, but I didn't want to leave the court. I was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. And so yeah, that was my first introduction to playing paddle.
It's amazing how many stories I've heard about driven tennis players doing some paddle on the side, or either swimming or paddle. But when you pick up the paddle racket, there is no turning back. So tell us, why do you think, Scott, that paddle is such an addictive, so quickly addictive sport for so many levels, not just good racket players, but so many people. Like we're just talking with John, who we played with, just right away.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, there's an element of it that obviously it can be very competitive and very high level if you want it to be, but it's just so much fun. There's an element of fun about it and gamified, that is kind of missing from tennis a little bit. And I guess maybe it's the level I played at in tennis, but it was always like, if I wasn't playing amazing, or if I didn't have the right person I was playing against, I was kind of done with it. Whereas it doesn't, I'm a bit biased because I'm part of a club and I'm out there playing with everyone, which I absolutely love, but I just love being out there. It's like even today, we're playing in the 100 and whatever it is heat, and I wanted to keep playing. It's just so much fun, and it's such a game, and there's elements of chess to it, which I love, and it's so dynamic, and yeah, I love it for those reasons and many others. So.
That's brilliant. One of the things I was talking with Gabo, who runs an amazing thing called Tasty Paddle in Stockholm, and he talks about how it's even fun to watch, not even the pro levels, as long as you have 4 reasonably competent and even players on the court,
Yeah.
even that's fun to watch.
Yes.
Because of course it's fun to play, but that element of fun to watch, how important is that for the development of the sport?
Yeah, I think it is really important. I mean, you made such a great point, and I agree with that completely. Sometimes when I'm out on the courts, I can't believe that the point is still going on.
Right.
It almost like where it makes you laugh, where you're like, no way, that person got that back.
I certainly don't be the one who screws it up.
Exactly. It's just like that part of it is so entertaining as well. And like you said, it doesn't matter who's on the court. If you get people of similar ability out there, their rallies can continue. It doesn't matter if they're beginner or intermediate or advanced. And I think part of that is just, it keeps you coming back for more. It's like when you get one of those crazy long points, or even if you watch it at the pro level, you think, oh my God, like this is just an element of the game that is so unique and so much fun.
We're going to get into this a little later about how the watchableness of paddle tennis is I think something that's important to me. We're going to look at that relative to a pickle and a lawn tennis.
Mm-hmm.
But just sticking with you a little bit longer. So one of the things I'm constantly trying to dig into is how do people convert, not just from a passion piece, but from playing tennis to playing paddle, and the challenges of untennising and re-paddling. What are the challenges you face, and what are the things or tricks you would think about in terms of switching from tennis to real paddle?
Yeah, good question. So I think, anyone that comes to the sport with a little bit of racket sports history, of course, can help. But similarly, like I mentioned, the first time playing, you think you have all the tools right away, and then you realize you don't, because the game is dynamic. It's something you haven't experienced before, with the walls, with the angles, learning the rules, obviously. So yeah, I think it's one of those things where you have to get the basics down right, and that's why coaching and clinics and all those things are important. But it doesn't take much to get out there and start having fun immediately. And that's what I love about the sport is, we've introed hundreds of people now into it. And if we give people those tools to like start having fun immediately, they don't have to learn everything right off the bat. They can go out there and just knock around with, a little bit of teaching and technique of, okay, this is the way to hold the racket. But like anything else, it's experience. The more you get out there and play, the more fun you have, because you learn positioning, where you should stand, how to play off the wall, how to time it. And so I think whether you're coming from racquetball or squash or tennis or pickleball, you're starting with a really great base, but it's not necessary. You don't have to have those things in order to have fun playing paddle. We have tons of members now that have probably never touched a racket in their life, and I've seen them progress and get better. And if you're willing to learn and you're willing to be coachable, the sky's the limit for how much you can improve in the sport. So
that's such an important piece, the willingness to learn, the willingness to unlearn. And we were talking a little bit just before about how oftentimes when people are grading themselves, they have a tendency to overrate. I play paddle, I play tennis, or I play squash. I got this. But actually, I feel like we need another dose of humility, which will level us to the right spot, but also allow us to be more prone to wish to learn.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's the thing. Everyone wants to be, sometimes it's maybe ego driven or whatever for people to be at the level. I mean, a lot of times people want to play with the people that they want to play with, right. And sometimes you're below that level, sometimes you're above it. But one of the great things that I think we've done a good job of adopting at the club is just creating this like open atmosphere where it's good to play with both. We have a lot of people that have experience, that have been here for years playing, that like to elevate the people that are just coming in, which is fantastic, because that's what it needs. I mean, people need to be coached and need to do clinics, but they need to get familiar with playing with all different types of levels. So I think that's the thing. The more connections, groups, and things you get involved in a club, and playing tournaments, even if it's just for fun, ladders, leagues, all those things that are just going to get you experience. And everyone's different. I mean, it doesn't have to be that path for everyone, but if you are aiming to improve and you want to increase your level and your rating especially, you need to work on certain things and not just say, oh, that's my level and I can't be told otherwise. So yeah.
And I mean, frankly, the game is still evolving. And so even if I've had several of the top 20 players on the show, and they're still looking to learn, still improving and they're still looking at each other and saying, "Whoa, that's a new type of shot. That's a new type of game."
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, despite the fact that the sport was invented in 1969, it feels like we're at a new era of expansion.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's true. I mean, I'm definitely in that camp where I just want to continually improve and learn things. And I mean, I need to do the things that I'm preaching to other people to do. I need to take lessons. I need to get out there. I need to play more tournaments. Sometimes I wish there was more hours in the day to be out on courts, but I'm blessed to be in an environment where, you know, this is essentially my office, and but I see it through other people too, and that gives me satisfaction as well. So.
All right, let's start talking about this P1 Padel project. So we're in Las Vegas. This center had been built by an Englishman. Tell us a little bit the journey to creating P1 Padel here.
Yeah, sure. So we started our company about 1.5 years ago, and it's kind of a long story that I'll try to shorten about how we kind of started the company. But as I mentioned, I lived in the Bahamas, and I have a good friend there, or good friends, Simon and Gigi, who were essentially my neighbors in the development that we live. And we talked one day about going to play paddle over in Albany. And we went and played, and they're from the UK as well, and they kind of knew the boom that was happening because they had people in their ear talking about it, very well connected. They had built a really successful business called Escapology, which is an escape room business. Built it out to over 80 locations, so did very, very well with it. Are basically out of it now, have a small involvement, but you know, essentially could probably have retired, but especially Simon, his mind keeps working, and he has, you know, people telling him that, hey, you really need to look at this sport. It's really on the rise everywhere else in the world. It's fairly in infancy stages in North America, and there's real opportunity there. So we went and played at Albany. They fell in love with it. He has an interesting story where I mentioned he played at the Marbella Club.
Right.
We have a picture of it on our wall. He played there as a kid, so he knew of the sport, but hadn't played it for many years, and kind of got reinvigorated when we went and played over in Albany. And we started talking, and he built a whole deck, did tons of research. I mean, that is really his niche. He's great at a lot of different things, but he really does his research, and data is his forte. So he really dug in deep and created this incredible deck, and he sent it to me just as a, hey, just take a look at this. I stayed up all night reading it, and I sent him this big long text, and I said, hey, if you're really thinking about pursuing this, I want to be involved. This is something that I'm really interested in. I have another career in finance, like a kind of a self-propelled career that was one of the reasons I moved to the Bahamas. But I always knew that maybe I would get involved in something on the side, something that I was really passionate about. And when I read that deck, it was just like bulbs went off. Yeah, and I just said, I want to be involved, and that's kind of how we started. So.
Well, that's like you were saying before, you like the adventure piece.
Yes,
and
for sure.
it involves taking risks. So you take over management of this club. The challenge when you're taking over is of course figuring out whether there's enough of the base, what's the model, the pricing, affordability, rent, blah blah blah, and all these other things which are sort of coming with the existing base. So talk us through how you approach that and what you've tried to do to make the club so successful.
Yeah, so it's been a long journey. We just had our 1 year anniversary. Sometimes it feels like 10 years, but June 1st just came around the corner. So we've been here a year. We've learned a lot. I mean, that's obviously the best thing. Still a lot of growth and things that we're trying to improve on and refine, and our goal is to definitely open up more centers, 10, 15, 20, maybe in the next decade or so. There's obviously so much room for growth in major markets in the US and potentially in Canada as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Canada is a virgin territory, it seems,
exactly.
Unfortunately.
Exactly. So the opportunity is endless. And we're just so behind the end product. I mean, for sure, of course, this is a business, and we work really hard to get all the little details right. It's really important to us that our center looks a certain way, that our staff, you know, uphold the right kind of demeanor and interaction with people, and all the things that you would need to have to run a successful sports club. But we just absolutely love the end product, and we're thrilled about the hopeful potential rise here in the US. And there's so much opportunity, and we're looking forward to just continuing to learn, refine our processes, really get it right here before we look at expanding and opening more centers.
So what about sort of marketing and attracting new customers, and the other key question always for me is the pro or the pros. Having good pros who can teach the culture of the game, not just technically.
Yes. Yeah.
And bring in that sort of social fun part, as opposed to, well, oftentimes we sort of reduce it down to, technique, how to play.
Yeah. So marketing is obviously a really important piece, especially at early stages. I mean, the reality is paddle doesn't have the trendiness that pickleball has in the US, where people are more probably in the stage of seeking that out, whereas we really need to work hard to get people through the door.
What are you doing? Paddleboard? What is this game?
Yeah,
Pop tennis?
exactly.
Platform?
Exactly, and we have people walking through the center that Google search pickle, and they come here because we're creative with our SEO search, and we land on pages when people search pickle. But I mean, we work really hard at our marketing. Our team, TPA out of the UK in a small island, Guernsey, they do a fantastic job, and so they do their job of getting people through the door, and then we equally do, we work hard and do a good job here to facilitate a really great introductory session for people. It's called Try Paddle. We run it 4 days a week, really structured session where we do about 10-15 minutes fun presentation, intro, the coach to the people, kind of learn where people are from, why they're interested in playing. Then we learn some of the basics, go out on the court, teach some of the fundamentals to get them kind of started on the right trajectory, and then just let them play, let them have fun and enjoy it for the last kind of half an hour. So that's been an important piece of introing people in the right way, because it's not enough to just have the courts and expect people to walk through and jump on.
Right.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like you need to, the rules, it's different. You give a few guidelines, but it's important that they're immediately playing.
Yes, for sure.
So tell us about some of the lessons you've learned. You were saying, over the year you've learned some lessons of growing, and what would you say would be useful lessons for, I mean, obviously you don't want to share with competitors, but how can other club owners benefit, and what sort of thoughts should they be thinking about in order to make it for a better club?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing we want more than for the sport to grow. So when we hear about clubs popping up, it's the best thing that we hear, because that's what this sport needs to really take off. As far as lessons, I mean, we've learned so many, but I would say one of the biggest things is cultivating a culture which it feels very open, where people feel comfortable coming here, not intimidating at all. Because sometimes you can get to, whether it's a posh tennis club or one of these maybe small pickleball centers or something where it's only that group, and you feel like if you're not part of it, you're not welcome.
A little bit of attitude.
Yeah. So we want to create a culture which is very open, and that encompasses a lot of different things. Having programs that are for everyone. Of course, there are specific ones for certain levels. But creating an atmosphere where if you want to come out to Courts and Coffee, our Sunday program, which is fun and it's open level, and it's just as much about the social and relaxing and unwinding on the weekend and getting a good workout as much as it is about anything else. So I think really facilitating an environment where people feel that they can learn easily, that they're around people that have the same interest is helpful. And that takes time to build, obviously. But you got to work with people. You got to really, we pride ourselves on having a very high level of customer service. And when someone walks through our door, we really we know our staff for sure know everyone by name, and it's just really important that they feel welcome at this club. But for a lot of people, it's their second home. I mean, when they're not at work or maybe not at home, they're here because they absolutely love it. And there's always room for improvement and things that we're working on, but when you create an atmosphere where people just want to be here all the time, that's, I think, a recipe for success.
I mean, and then from an economic model standpoint, naturally, there's playing, but helps to have a good bar and a good restoration, so that from an economic standpoint can also help.
Yes.
People feel very comfortable coming here. They can just come in and have a drink without even playing.
Exactly. I mean, that's the goal, is to have that environment that people just want to be around all the time. And we still have lots of work to do to make it exactly what we want to be and figure out that exact model to kind of replicate and expand and build more clubs. But we're certainly on our way, and we're noticing it in the past couple months, just learnings that we've implemented. And I think that's exactly it. It's just when you're focused on that level of customer service and experience, that goes a long way, because I don't think Maybe in the short term, it could be a model to just put courts and expect people to go and show up and play, like almost like a community center vibe. And it's not to say that that can't work for the paddle addicts that are looking for variety and playing different clubs. But if you want to be part of something and part of a club and part of a lot of people, our members, they love inviting their friends here. They found this thing and they want to bring their friends or their family, and that's really rewarding for us. So.
I just can't think of any successful paddle club that doesn't enjoy or promote the social aspect.
Yeah, for sure.
So from a model, you've made it a membership paddle. What's the model for playing?
Yeah, so we've evolved it over time, but we never wanted to make it a member-exclusive only place. We didn't, it is important for us to intro people to the sport, and sometimes it takes people some time to feel like this is something that they want to really make part of their life and come multiple times a week and get involved in all the things that we have to offer. But non-members can play all the time. So we do have memberships, and we've recently switched to offer unlimited type memberships, which has had a helpful benefit to the club. Kind of going back to what I was saying earlier about just creating this openness where people don't feel so rigid to only come out for the exact perfect game that they want.
Yeah.
They're more inclined to just kind of be out, make more connections, which creates organic growth as a result. We had all the programs from the beginning, but it was hard sometimes to get people out. We knew that they wanted to come out, but they almost had to be like personally invited, which is nothing wrong. I think we were a bit naive, just kind of having that mentality that this sport is great and people are just going to come out and play.
Once you've drunk the Kool-Aid, you think everyone naturally just whiffs it and gets it.
Exactly, and that's such a good point. So we've kind of shifted our mentality. And that's had a huge benefit, and as a result, the club is definitely starting to trend in the right direction. And obviously, there's certain things that we can control, like the weather here, which can be challenging. But as far as an atmosphere that we've created at the club, it's definitely starting to happen the way we thought it would. So.
And obviously, the club doesn't have it's not indoors, so you are beholden to the weather and the heat here. I can certainly testify, is warm in the middle of the day. Actually, starting at 11 o'clock, it's already warm, at least in June. So presumably you have to figure out how to manage downtimes. I mean, this is always a problem during the weeks anyway for most clubs, with the weather on top of it.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, it's something that we're, last year when we started in June, we launched right at the peak of that. And I don't think we really faulted ourselves for not having find our feet yet. We had a lot to learn, but now we're coming into 1 year and we have to make some refinements and figure out what's best for business. And so we have changed our summer hours, and even starting as of next week, we're adjusting things, sending polls out there for people to kind of vote on, hey, this is a program that runs, let's say our men's night on Monday at 6:30, which is a really successful program now. We fill all the courts, have people on the wait list, which is fantastic. And we sent out a poll to say, hey, we know it's getting hot. Would you prefer that 6:30 to now be 8? So it's important to us to engage with the members and not just say, hey, this is how it's going to be. We have to listen to them. The club is for them. So we take that feedback in everything that we do and implement it. So so we have adjustments to make for the Vegas heat. And like you said earlier, I mean, there's no reason why the cafe can't still be booming, or this be a place to come and work and people pop up their laptop, because it's a nice environment where they feel relaxed, and we're looking at a pretty nice view of paddle courts. So.
Any view of paddle courts is a nice view. So in terms of the United States, obviously I've had Marcus on, I've had Nico, Luis and Luisito, and talking about Nale, my cousin, about the U.S. market. So Las Vegas seems to be another booming part of the paddle world. It has a team for the Professional Paddle League, and you've had you have the American Paddle League or something like this, where you've done the tournament. You can tell us a little bit about the sort of higher levels and what you're trying to do, what part of it you can participate in.
Yeah, so we just recently, 2 weeks ago, had a USPA major here, which is something we obviously as a club petitioned to be a part of and host at our club. There's 4 of those a year, and generally they like to split them up between East Coast and West Coast. So we got accepted to be a host club of one. And obviously our first time running a major tournament, and we offered the biggest prize pool ever for a USPA tournament, 21,000, which might not seem like a lot, but obviously paddle is in infancy stages and there's only room for growth from here. So we were really excited to be a part of that. Obviously we had to get sponsorship and it had to all make sense for us in order to run, but we worked really hard behind the scenes and we have a really great team behind us. To put that on and make it happen, and we've got really great feedback from it. I mean, we personally think it went really well. We had our club members involved as well, kind of running a fun little side D3 tournament. So, I mean, it was amazing. It was just so great to see the level, the caliber of players out here. We got some international players coming. And obviously Vegas is an exciting city, so you know we have that in our back pocket, which is nice, and we can try to lean into that as well. But yeah, the level was unbelievable, and we can't wait for the next one next year. And we hope the prize money increases, we hope the sponsorship increases, we hope the attendance increases. We have a lot of learnings, a lot of things that we would improve because we do hold a high standard, but it went exceptionally well, and yeah, it's just amazing to see where the sport is going. I mean, the players that were out there and the level, it was something to behold. It was quite exciting to watch.
And so speaking of watching exciting players, do you watch much professional paddle?
I don't really. I think I will, but it's something that I'm either all in or not at all. And I kind of got to that way with tennis. Like I took my break, where I just wasn't interested, and then a couple of years ago I really got into the circuit. And I think it's about learning the characters, because of course it's exciting to just watch a game or watch highlights, but until you know the individuals, that's when it really becomes something different. So I think when I have time and when I'm able to get into that, I certainly will, because I love watching it for sure.
Well, that is fascinating that you say that, Scott, because there are many sports you can start looking at, golf, lawn tennis, and you look at Jocko or Alcaraz, but there is something specifically interesting about these characters, I feel, in paddle, where this notion of playing as two is so continuously organic and complex and interesting, as opposed to lawn tennis where you bada bing, bada boom. You serve, volley, trying to win quickly. It's 3 points, 3 shots, suddenly. Whereas the average rally is 9 shots in paddle, or 12 shots. So, there's going to be more happening every point.
Yeah.
So that there's something sophisticated. How do you read that? I mean, looking at that chemistry between players.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think that is such an exciting element to the sport, and why. I mean, it creates drama too, right? I mean, when players switch partners, that's a big deal.
Divorce.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we see that at our own clubs. Oh, that person's not playing with that person.
Well, I don't like him anymore.
But it's true. It adds an element of drama, which I think is unique and different. I mean, of course, doubles has always been a thing in tennis, but it never took off the way obviously singles did. And so that is the really neat thing about paddle, is that it'll really forever, I think, be a doubles game. I mean, I know there are singles courts, but the game is meant to be played as a doubles game. And so, yeah, I mean, I think especially as more countries adopt it and you get players from all over the world, really, and I think, hopefully when it lands in the Olympics one day, that'll change things for sure. And even, we hope to see it as a collegiate, when it lands in colleges, and I mean that'll just, there's so much for it to have to happen for the sport to really take off. Juniors need to be involved. So yeah.
It's interesting. I haven't actually heard of any universities getting involved. I suppose they're getting involved in pickleball. Not my favorite sport. Sorry. But and let's just talk about pickleball a second. And a lot of people would be coming here and they're saying, why isn't there a pickleball court? Is that something? I mean, I know in America it's such a big sport.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of think as paddle is a bit of pickle is a bit of a smokescreen for paddle. And we don't see it as a competitor or something that's in the way. I mean, to be honest, something that gets people out, gets them active, and the fact that there's a racket in their hand is amazing. We have a lot of people and a lot of members that play pickleball as well as paddle. They love both, or they still play tennis, or they still play squash or racquetball. And I think it's fantastic. I mean, I'll never give up playing tennis, although I haven't played in a year and a half because I've been obsessed with this. I mean, tennis is my first love, and there's nothing wrong with having multiple passions in your life. And so when people are coming here maybe searching for pickle, we don't see it as a barrier. We say, hey, this isn't pickle, but we have this amazing sport out here called paddle, and we want to introduce you to it. And we've converted a lot of people from that, and that's okay. You know, I think there's room for both. And as a business model, there's probably good room for having, you know, maybe pickleball courts at a paddle center, just as some variety and a way to get people through the door.
All right, well, Scott, last question. So P1, congratulations on what you've been doing in Vegas. What about the future? Where you mentioned opening up other clubs, what are you looking for, and talk about the type of markets and or type of clubs you're trying to do. Is it basically copy and paste what you got here, or what do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, the reality is there's so much opportunity in major markets across the U.S. I mean, it's crazy to think that there's these incredible cities that have no courts at all.
Zero.
Yeah, I mean, I went out and did my certification with Marcos out in LA last year, and there was coaches there that were part of tennis clubs, and they didn't have paddle courts, but they just wanted to get certified because they knew that hopefully it's coming, and so. You know, you could look at any major market right now and say, I think there's opportunity there to put some courts. And so we're still trying to figure out what actually is the best model for us. Obviously, you know, models like what's happening in Sweden, where there was this massive boom and then now it's kind of reverted a little bit. You know, we just definitely want to be careful. I think there's just a lot of things to consider when opening a club, and obviously indoor is probably the best business model, but it comes at a cost. I mean, obviously, and it's not an easy sell for landlords. I mean, we spent the first 5-6 months of the inception of our company trying to find the right location and the right. There's a long checklist that we had of things to find, but it's a tough sport for checking off all those things: the clear height, the space, and it's not familiar for landlords to get into the spaces that you want to be. So I think that'll eventually change, and obviously like real estate and all those things, if those start to turn a corner as well, that will obviously help. But I think we still are trying to figure out what is the right thing. Is it a combination of indoor, outdoor? Is it maybe taking over existing tennis centers that are maybe no longer? So we're still trying to figure that out. But it's an exciting part of it because we can't wait to expand and just continue to share this sport with more people all over, and build on our learnings.
All right, so Scott, last two questions about your paddle. The first is, how do you describe your game? And the way I like to ask that is, what sort of an animal do you think you are on a paddle court?
Okay, so my game is definitely still evolving. Like I mentioned, the first couple months I was playing, I thought I could just stand at the net and cream the ball. And now I guess the word to describe my game, or where I want my game to go, is strategic. I'm fortunate enough to have great players to play with. Alfredo, Masi, there's a handful of really great players here, and when I watch them, or I watch the tournament, or I watch the pros, I realize it's a graceful sport. You don't have to rush. If you just take your time, if you're in the right position, if you bend your knees, if you think and use your brain and use the angles, then that's how you can really continue to improve and grow. And so that's where I want my game to go. For sure, I like slamming the ball out of the court, but
you did plenty today. Maybe the heat helps too.
Yeah.
But last question then. This is the joy of paddle, and I like to think that paddle brings joy. So, what do you have a story or an anecdote of a joyful moment on a paddle court?
I've just been a part and witnessed so many people come through the door for a try paddle, and at the beginning, it was me hosting those sessions. And there's nothing more satisfying than like people that have never played coming out and just having the time of their life. You know, especially when we get a big group. You know, we've done bachelor parties, we've done corporate events, we've done birthday parties, and there's nothing more rewarding than just seeing people getting a great workout. So it's good for them. They had the social element, and they learned something new. That to me is I'll never get tired of seeing that. So we just want more of that here, and hopefully a future clubs that we build.
That sounds like the great final word. Scott, thank you for coming on the show and sharing your joy of paddle.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to host you. Yeah, I can't wait to have you back in the future, and we'll stay in touch. Thank you for having me.
Vamos paddle.
Vamos.
And
cut.